Hey, hello everybody, including Denise, Stephanie, and I'm Holly Elissa. We're so happy to be with you today. What this program is called is Trauma Survivors Walking Each Other Home. And today we might have three or more trauma survivors walking each other home. This podcast originated when we realized that everyday people who are trauma survivors need a space to just be real, authentic, and tell the truth about what it's like to create, discover, unleash, unfurl a healthy, happy life, including the sadness and the sorrow that comes with being a trauma survivor. So Denise and I have been together here doing this for a couple months, and we talk a lot about everyday things. So I'm going to just ask Denise, sweetie, can you tell people about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Denise Rokicki, a Head Start teacher for many, many years. Now I'm retired, but I have to wait to collect Social Security, so I'm like semi-retired, I would say. And I am a trauma survivor, and I'm trying to heal at all times and trying to make the world a better place.
And you do. And you do. And we've got Stephanie with us. We may have other people joining us. And we just want you to know that you are totally at choice. If you join us, you are not expected to do anything, say anything, be anything. And if you feel like it, you can speak, you can share, or you can just be with us. We're glad you're with us. So if Stephanie's comfortable saying who you are, please do. And if not, we'll be glad to say something about you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm from Toledo, Ohio, and um, I am here because as an early childhood educator, we see a lot of kiddos coming in with trauma. And I have always felt like my role in early childhood was to be the person that I needed when I was younger. And that has really pushed me to be that calm, patient, kind person with all the little people that I worked with.
And it sounds like, did you have a model for that when you were growing up, Steph?
I did not.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't either, and I feel like Denise didn't either. So,
Well, as a matter of fact, I often relate to this topic that you mentioned, which is I created a good childhood for myself in my classroom. And I wanted to make sure that all the children were safe and they were having their best time too.
and that's been really powerful listening to Denise and Stephanie. I'd love to hear you too talk about just some of the very elemental, heartfelt ways in which you just welcomed children into the classroom and said, "You're here. We love that you're here. We love you as you are." It's like Fred Rogers saying, "Won't you be my neighbor?" It's you that I'm interested in. And why talk about this now? Because the world is traumatized. 58% of early childhood professionals, which we all are here right now, are traumatized. We ourselves did not experience, like Denise said, we didn't have that person that could be there for us. Or maybe we had one or two along the way and we remember them. But there was not the consistent, steady Eddie, steady Edwina person who could guide us, support us, and let us know that we were loved just for who we are. And so we're creating that for ourselves as adults and creating that for the children in the classroom and creating that for as many people as we can. If you don't know me, my friends, I'm a recovering attorney. And I also went into early childhood after doing a lot of legal positions. And now I write. And I write about trauma and recovery. And my book was entitled Happiness is Running Through the Streets to Find You, Translating Trauma's Harsh Legacy into Healing. And that's our theme. How can we help each other and help others co-create a world that we can find to be safe when the world isn't safe? And we're just coming out of, oh my goodness, if you're in America, you feel this because it's intensely with us all the time. If you're from another country, you felt similar things in other ways in your country. We just had violence that everybody saw and everybody sees again and again. It's like, you guys remember 911 when little children were exposed to television with this airplane crashing into the building? Children, that stuck in their brains. And when I say stuck in their brains, our brains too, as adults, that's what trauma does. Trauma is life-threatening. It's so scary and we feel so unsafe that our brains respond on steroids, literally on steroids. Our brains respond with, I'm going to get out of here, I'm going to get safe, or I'm going to fight back if that's what I have to do, or I'm going to people please, freeze, flight. What is it? Fear, flight or flight, freeze, fawn, which is people please, or float, which is dissociate. Those are the four things we learn to do. And when my brain is in any of those states, my executive function, that part of the children's brains that we're trying to help encourage, that's called regulation, the part of the brain we're trying to help encourage drops to 5 to 10% of its capacity. And that's true for adults too. I just came from a group of elders. I'm 78, and so I fit this group of elders in early childhood. And people were talking about, what can we do? What can we do? How can we help? And I just stood up and said, wait a minute. We had a person from Nigeria who was talking about the trauma there. I said, one thing we can do is work together to create a safe space where those of us adults can feel at home in ourselves as trauma survivors. If a child starts screaming, which children do, and it triggers in me the fact that I was muzzled, I was hit, I was hurt, just so that I couldn't scream. I was not allowed to scream, cry as a child at all. And that could trigger me in the moment as a professional, as an early childhood professional. So I believe we need to know, what do we do with ourselves? And how can we support each other in that? And one thing I recommended some years ago in an exchange article was that programs like Head Start have groups of trauma survivors where teachers, staff, directors, where we can talk about those things. And I thought it never took effect because I kept hearing, I'm not comfortable sharing my dirty laundry with other people in the program. And I understood that. But just today, I heard of a group in Nebraska that has this process, my friends, elders, that is people who have retired as teachers. So Denise, you're almost there, honey.
Yep, almost there.
And I'm still not retired, so I'm not there. But people who have retired volunteer to imagine this stuff. They come back in the classroom and they relieve a teacher for like 2 hours where the children go on a field trip or something. And of course, they're all certified, so it's safe, it's easy, and everybody knows them, so the children are comfortable. So the teachers take off, 2 of them take off with the kids, depending upon the size of the group, and one stays behind and just talks with the teacher who's been traumatized about, so how's it going? How are you doing? What was it like this week when you saw the television all over the place about person getting shot? What was it like when and how do you come to the classroom every day when you got something like that going on? So I guess I want to start with a question. What do you feel we can do for each other? And Steph is now working with a group of people that you can maybe tell us what you do in case people are not familiar with R&Rs, but my sense is you help a whole lot of people, from parents to teachers to like community members, find the effective childcare, and then help people get trained also in effective childcare. Is that what you're doing as an R research and referral person?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. We have a team of specialists that go out to programs, help them with anything and everything in the classrooms. We help on the administrative side as well, but yeah, a lot of training and parent trainings, teacher trainings, all sorts of things. But yeah, you hit it right on the head there, Holly.
Thank you, sweetie. And tell me some of the trainings you would have for teachers, especially teachers, as you said, we're all dealing with children that are traumatized.
We have had a large request for behavior management trainings. As we go out to programs, that's what our biggest struggle with programs that they share with us is a lot of behaviors, right? We've even been fortunate here in Ohio to have a state-funded initiative for mental health consultants for the programs, which is great, but there's not enough people for all of the children that need the services.
Right.
Which is every program.
Yeah.
How many do you have? How many of those consultants do you have?
So we work with 20 counties in Northwest Ohio,
Okay.
over 400 programs, and I have a team of 3 specialists. And the mental health consultants for our area work with the same counties, and there are two mental health consultants.
I'm grateful for those people. And at the
Yeah.
same time, Denise, when you hear those statistics, what does that say to you about the kids?
Yeah, well, I mean, all teachers should be trauma informed. I mean, all teachers should have strategies to help kids feel safe from the minute they walk in and to keep them safe from themselves too when they get triggered. I mean, we have to monitor ourselves, and I think all teachers should be trauma informed, really.
Yes.
Agreed. And Denise, what's just one thing that you have done? We've talked about one where you help children in their entrance to the classroom and they're leaving the classroom. Can you give us another example that you used and maybe you got help with from conscious discipline, from the R&R? Maybe you got help from various people about how to work on 2 levels. One with the child that's hurting from trauma, and 2 with a part of yourself that gets triggered.
Yeah, breathing really from conscious discipline, from the first day away from trauma, not in a trauma situation, but away from a trauma, just in a group, we're going to practice breathing and make our own breaths or practice the ones that Becky Bailey invented, or it really makes all the difference. If you stand in front of a group of a line of children, which they like, my classroom was designed, right? Well, my classroom was designed so that they kind of just fell into a line, one behind the other, and we practice that together, breathing. Before we go, we're going to all get together and get calm and take a breath, and then we're going to walk out this door safely and go to the bathroom, and we'll have 2 bathrooms, explain what's going to happen, and until they feel safe, till they know, until they're in routine with you.
And so, Steph, how does that sound to you?
So I don't know if Denise remembers this, but her and I attended the OAEYC conference together, and we attended a conscious discipline training session together.
Nice.
And I remember during that, I feel like it was a team building, team growth moment for the both of us, because they asked us to identify or really think about what our personal triggers are, right? And I had never thought of that before. And um, it was kind of eye-opening, I think, for the both of us, because one, we were able to see ourselves outside of that child behavior, right? See the child outside of that behavior and recognize that, you know, um, it's not that we struggle with that child or we struggle bonding with that child, is that we struggle with ourselves to get past that trigger for us. And once I feel like once we were able to recognize that, we were able to bond with those kids that had those behaviors that triggered us a lot more. I don't want to
Right.
say a little, a lot. And it was super helpful. And I feel like it was a growth moment
Oh,
for
I
sure.
love that. I love that. And Denise, you talked about that too. Can you walk us through the process that you learned or you were talking about in that session at OAEYC, which sounds great, where you identified your own trigger? Like for me, for example, sometimes when children scream when they're really in an extreme place, it hurts my ears so badly that my brain goes flat. And all I can do is to think of either one, I've got to get out of here for me, or I'm going to just go crazy. Or how can I work through my own grief and anger at this point to be with that child and help that child? The minute I can get to saying, I'm here to help that child and I can use my experience, I'm good. But in the minute when it's like, and I'm feeling like my brain is going crazy, that's the tough thing. So, how did the Becky Bailey training help you? If you're willing to say you don't have to, but what's one of the triggers for you and Denise? And what was the next step in terms of identifying, honoring that? And then what do you do to be, and I'm trying to remember to bond with the child, as you said. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
So I don't remember how we got to the point of figuring out like what I don't remember the precursor to that, right?
Okay.
But I do know my trigger in child behavior is when a child blatantly, obviously ignores you, right? Like doing one of those head turns when you're talking to them, closing their eyes, plugging their ears. Um, and I think for me, that's because I have a fixer personality, right? Like I want to help, I want to do all the things, and I want to help you, right? So when a child wants no part of that, to me,
Yeah.
that's like, no, wait, I'm just trying to help, and it's hard for me to back away and give them that space. But learning through that conscious discipline and saying, okay, I see you're not ready to talk yet. I am here when you're ready, and giving them that space, right? I didn't have a parent who would tell me, you know what, I see you're not ready to talk yet. Let me know when you're ready. I had a you're going to talk to me kind of parent. And
Mm.
so for me, it was a part where I had to grow as a person, right? I had to learn that it's okay. It's okay. Sometimes I'm not ready to talk to everybody, right? And so I need that moment. So recognizing that in the little ones too is especially helpful.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you. Do you remember what it felt like to go through that inside yourself to say, oh my God, I was never listened to as a child. I was like, you will do this. You have no choice. Do you remember facing that? Was that possible to face, or was it just too much when you were reflecting?
I It was a lot, right?
It is.
I
It is.
I I have four kids and I parent my kids way differently than I was parented, right? And that's a good thing. You can either continue that cycle and repeat that cycle, or you can learn and grow from it. And I just last weekend, all four of my kids were in my room, sitting on my bed. Now, mind you, I have two teenagers. They're 17 and almost 18, and they're all in my room. And I thought to myself, one day this isn't going to happen, right? I never, as a child, stepped foot into my parents' bedroom, right? I couldn't tell you what their bedroom looked like. I didn't know what things were in their bedroom. That just wasn't a place for me, right? But my kids were sitting on my bed, laying on my floor, just everywhere, and we're just talking. And to me, that feeling of I've grown through what I've gone through and created a whole different environment for my children and for the children that I've worked with. It makes me feel like your trauma doesn't define you, right? And it makes you who you are, of course, for sure. But just it made me feel relief and happiness to know that I came through that.
I love hearing that. And there are two things that are already becoming very obvious before we turn to Denise and ask her the similar same question. One is just giving voice. Just giving voice. As children, we didn't have a voice. We were, many of us were silenced, or it was beaten out of us, or it was shamed out of us. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Just being able to acknowledge that we had feelings that weren't acknowledged, that's freedom. That's the beginning of freedom. And the second thing is then the feelings that go along with that. For years, I could acknowledge what happened, but I couldn't embrace the feelings. And Denise and I have talked about this. It was so hard to say, I was really angry as a child when I couldn't say, it wasn't my fault. I didn't do what you're accusing me of. So stop spanking me. I didn't do this. The rage was one of the feelings that I needed to say, I've got it. I'm not going to hurt anybody with it, but I've got it. And I saw it out of control. So those two things, is just being able to articulate, and two, being able to say, I had those feelings too. And when this child is doing this, and they're so good at blah, 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 you're not, it's actually can make me smile now, because that child is doing what she needs to do to protect herself.
Right.
She's been invaded. So people crossed her boundaries like the machetes. She's saying, I need time. And thank you, staff, for giving that to her and understanding it's not about you in that moment. It is about you. It is about me, but it's about our responsibility to those children to give them, what did you say about we go through things so that we can grow through things? Thank you for that. And Denise, how about you, hon? What about one of the things that you got triggered in you that you turned around to be something really healing for the kids and for yourself? It might have been
For
tough.
me, it was a sensation that I would get, like I had to recognize that when my lip gets all tight. And
Oh,
so then that's when I know it's time to breathe, and practice my breath so that I can come with calmness and kindness.
what do you say inside yourself when that happens? Because you're noticing that inside yourself before you say anything to the kids, right? And
Right.
before, when you were growing up, when you were doing that, I doubt you had any consciousness of it because you were surviving in the moment.
No, it was
right?
just a sensation. And I noticed my mom does the exact same thing when I say something that annoys her or whatever, she gets a little lip sensation. And I picked it up from her, I guess, but it just tells me you're triggered.
Yep.
I'm triggered and I need to bring myself back to the executive state
Mhm.
so I can keep everybody safe here. Because I
Mhm.
don't, I'm here to help these children, not abuse them or, be mean to them.
So that is great about catching on that sensation, and for me, it's holding my breath. I learned to hold my breath. A lot of trauma survivors
And
hold
your
their breath.
hands sweat too, right?
My hands sweat when I'm really under threat. And when I'm scared to death, that's right. That's another thing. I also can feel the fur, like I'm an animal, fur on the back of my neck, standing up. I read, oh my God, I got it. But here's the next step for me. And I want to ask you guys about this. I start talking with myself now in ways that I never talked with myself before. Does that make sense to you, Steph? Like, how do you do that now? I mean, I call myself sweetie. Sweetie, it's okay. It's okay. You're with a 3-year-old. You're not 3 years old. And yes, it hurt. And yes, it was horrible. And yes, you have a right to be angry. And you know what it feels like to have someone not listen, not see you, not believe you. That was the worst. It's bad enough not to be seen or heard, but not to be believed. And this little girl is saying, I'm not going to listen to you until I know I'm safe with you. You know how to help her feel safe with you. All that kind of talk inside myself, first with myself to say, it's okay to feel like this. It doesn't feel good. It feels awful. Breathe in. For me, if I do something called tapping. I don't know if you guys know about that, but it alerts the acupressure points. And if I'm alone, I can tap and tap and get to those pressure points and get to those pressure points. And by the time I've done that all the way through my system, I'm home again. Executive function is back. So, guys, what kind of self-talk have you done that helps you, especially when you're in the presence of somebody else who's hurting?
I always say, have you drank water? Have you
Uh,
eaten any colors today? You know, I really go to the basics, and typically I need a drink of water or I need to eat something good, healthy. So,
and sometimes I just need to use the bathroom because I'm holding it because I don't take care of myself, right?
right.
It's amazing when I ask that question in large groups of early childhood professionals. How many of you don't use the bathroom every time you need to?
It's a phenomenon of early childhood educators.
Lack of self-care because we're focusing on those kids. And yet
Right.
the kids are learning from me. And if I'm not
Right.
taking care of myself, what are they learning? Put yourself last. Don't pay attention to your needs. Steph, how about you? What kind of self-talk do you do or did you do inside of yourself when you find yourself being triggered, especially in the presence of kids?
Um, I think I just really tell myself that this is just a small moment, right? Um, when I was younger, going through a lot of the things that I did, it felt like I was never going to see the light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yes.
And so I always felt kind of trapped or stuck, right? And so now when I encounter those difficult situations, like I remind myself, like you've been through a whole lot worse, right? Like you'll get through this. It's just a moment, right? This is just a moment
Just a
and it will
moment. Been
pass.
through it before and it will pass. Yeah. Yeah. And what do you do? Now, here's a piece of research we haven't talked about, but it takes when we say things like that to ourselves, we're consciously doing that, and that's healing. However, our bodies take time to catch up. So the research says, blah, blah, blah. Heart is still pounding. I'm trying to breathe. And what I need to do with myself at that point, when my body is still acting like it's on hypervigilant alert, I need to say, sweetheart, it's okay. Ah, it's okay.
I am here. I am safe. I say that to
Yes.
myself a lot.
I am
Yep.
here. I am safe.
I feel like when I was working directly with children, right? I would always hugs. I'm a hugger. Okay. And I would ask the kids, okay, would you like a hug? Right? Always that asking. And
Always.
then um the kids who, love to give me hugs, they knew that Miss Stephanie likes big hugs. And so um I
Yeah.
would we would hug and breathe together, right? And a lot of it I am was
Doing a
telling
podcast.
myself was for the kids, right? I need them to take a breath. But really, I think it helped me
Right.
more than it helped them, right?
That makes sense to you, Denise.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember which kids we had while you were there was it Ricky Bennett?
Mm.
No, I think that was before me.
Okay.
So
Who
let's
did
do,
we
we
have
can
in our
keep the
class
kids
that,
confidential if we can.
oh, right,
Right.
right.
Yeah,
Well,
it's okay.
yeah, I did.
I don't mean to correct you, but you're trying to go to a time when you guys both faced a child's behavior that was really, tough on you. And tough on the kids. So tell us what you were going to say about that. Don't worry about right now.
Well,
The other.
I don't know. I always had a very strong behavior child in my class.
Right.
They sent them to my way. So I was just trying to remember who it was with Stephanie that we had that was extra. I can't remember.
But so do you remember some of the behaviors that you guys had, like behavior? And by the way, Denise and Stephanie, could you tell people where you worked together and how many years ago?
It was I like 9 years. Well, Wendell was
Stop it,
4.
Denise.
Wendell was
Yes,
4, right?
right. So probably like 5 years.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Great Lakes Community Action Partnership is where
Which
we
is Head Start, right?
right. And
It
were
was,
you in the Owens program or the UT
yes.
Owens? Yeah.
It was the year I graduated from Owens.
Wow. So you got to work with Denise the year you graduated?
I
Girl, what a good
did.
fortune you had.
I did. And it's funny because when I had enrolled my middle son into Denise's classroom, I didn't know that Denise and her co-teacher at the time, Miss Connie, who I absolutely adore as well, um, they were really good friends with my mother-in-law because my mother-in-law was also a preschool teacher.
Right. We knew her from EOPA Head Start.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like a small world. It all worked together.
Any
Um,
connections?
yeah, yeah,
I
it was
love that.
great.
And her mother-in-law volunteered in my class like every day for the whole year 2 years that Wendell was there.
Yeah,
And now we're doing another thing that really helps trauma survivors. We are giving credit to connections,
yes,
loving connections, supportive connections. The minute a trauma survivor like me is reminded, oh my God, that's right. We met. Stephanie and I met. We know each other.
Right.
You and Denise work together. We know that working together in early childhood means that the focus was always what's best for the kids.
Right.
And because we've worked as trauma survivors, we also know the focus co-equally needs to be, how can I take care of me without projecting on the child and getting angry at the child? Or if I get angry at the child before I can regulate, then I can say to my team teacher, I need your help here. Somebody's going to be there. Even the teacher's aide sometimes is the most wonderful resource.
Her mother-in-law Claudia still comes to story time with her I guess they're grandkids?
great grandkids now.
Great
Yeah,
grandkids, right. Yeah, they still come. I mean,
So
that's the one thing is when you're in early childhood and you are honest and open and genuine and love people and try to make it better for people, other people like that join your force. And it's a beautiful thing. And we healed together, we learned together. And yeah. Yeah,
this is
that
an
was a beautiful
invitation. If you
time.
haven't worked for early childhood or Head Start, come on down, honey. We need really good people.
Right.
And what I want to ask you guys is something else here. And like a trauma survivor, it just flew out of my brain, but that's okay because I think it's going to come back. I'll just say a prayer here. Oh, here it is. Back in the day, teachers were taught you don't show your personal feelings. You keep your personal life personal. You don't get those two messed up at all. You just, And for trauma
Don't
survivors,
smile until after Christmas break. That's what they told me. Don't smile. This was the advice that I got. Do not smile at the children until they come back from Christmas break.
Denise, that's horrid.
University of Toledo,
Oh,
wow.
oh my God. Oh.
1982, 81.
Hey, 1965, Douglas College of Rutgers University. I took one day of education courses. Why did I walk out? Because they said, the first thing they didn't say was, let's talk about why you're here. Why do you want to why do you want to be a teacher? No, she said, from now on, you're a professional. You will come to this class with your stockings on. You will come to this class with your skirts on. This is a women's college, honey. We were wearing Levi's all the time. You will come to this class as a professional. You will act like a professional. And I thought, I'm out of here.
This ain't my cup of tea.
Same stuff. Same stuff. How about you, Stephanie? You were like a different era.
Right. You were a different era in education.
Did you get different
Yes,
stuff or the same in some
I
ways?
did. So one of my most influential teachers in college, um, he was phenomenal. He was just great, outgoing. Um, he said something to me that stuck with me all these years later, right? Um, he said, the children in your classroom, and he paraphrased another quote, but they don't care what you know until they know that you care, right? And that stuck with me because if I recall some of my favorite teachers through elementary school all the way through college, it was the ones who showed that they genuinely cared for me, not my grades, not my work, but me as a person, right? And I didn't have that. So when I got it from school, right, from my teachers, that is what inspired me to be that person for other kids. And that's what's really stuck with me.
That sound familiar, Denise?
Yeah. Yeah, we made ourselves a good childhood by helping children.
That's it.
Talk about that a little bit more because that might be a new concept to people. And there was a guy, Wayne Dwyer, who said, and I wanted to smack him upside the head, not that I'm violent, but metaphorically, I was like pissed at him. Said, "Never too late to have a happy childhood." And I said, "Come on, come on," And anyway. But you know what? He was right. He's right.
Right.
And so,
I
how do you
mean,
do that, Denise?
joy and delight and enthusiasm and and I relish in innocence. When they're innocent, oh, it's the most beautiful thing.
Can a traumatized child be innocent?
Nope.
Talk about that. I'd like to hear from
Uh,
Steve
that's
too.
what was robbed by the trauma. So when I see it, I'm delighted. I know that child has a safe place, like Wendell, for example. He had innocence and delight and curiosity. He had those.
Mhm.
And but there
Those,
are the kids that don't, if their innocence is gone, they are trying to find safety, and that's it. And trying to see if, how far they can push you to and still be safe with you.
that's it. I think of that as like the rose-colored glasses, right? Kids who have not experienced trauma wear those rose-colored glasses and they see everything as beautiful and spectacular and sunshine and rainbows, right?
And unicorns.
And unicorns, right? And those who have experienced trauma are now without those rose-colored glasses and they're seeing things through that trauma lens, right? Like everything is scary. Everything is going to hurt me. Nobody is safe, right? And so you have to build that back up.
And that's
But
what I wanted to, yeah, go ahead.
no, no, no. I was just going to say, but no longer able to have those rose-colored glasses.
Right,
So
you can never take them back.
and I think it's a both and. I think this is a really wonderful conversation because I believe, and this could be projection, I own that. I'm a hopeful person and I like to see things as being possible, but I don't like to go into denial of what's not true. But here's what I experienced myself as a trauma survivor. I was not safe when I was in the house. I knew I wasn't safe. I could not reveal myself there. I covered myself up all the time, hid. Like during the violence going on, I would go in the living room and hide behind the big chair because I was the smallest kid. And we weren't supposed to be in the living room. So I thought, well, people think, oh, I won't go there. I hid out. I hid when I was not in unsafe environments. However, I did not lose any of my innocence when I was out of doors. When I was out of doors, and Denise, I think of you because Denise is our butterfly partner. I mean, she just raises these butterflies so they fly free. And when I was outside, I would just watch a spider. I wasn't afraid of the spider. I thought, how is the spider making a web? It was fascinating. So I had the awe, I had the curiosity, I had the freedom, and I felt innocent when I was safe. So maybe the bridge between what you both are saying and what I'm saying is that innocence is within the child. It got beaten, it got robbed, it got taken away, but it's down there. And the really powerful teacher of traumatized children is the one that can go back and help that child feel safe enough to be innocent again. And I have seen children that are like traumatized children that are like in love with life again. You've seen that, right? How do we build that bridge? And first off, do you guys think it's a both and that there might be deeper down the innocence still?
I think
Okay.
innocence is gone, is robbed.
Okay. I hear you.
And yeah, you don't, you can find joy, you can find love, you can find delight, but I just feel like, at least for me, that innocence was completely gone.
And you
There
know
was
what might
no,
I hear you, sweetie. What might be going on here, and Stephanie, I can't speak for anybody but myself, but the two of us, Denise and I, have talked about being sexually abused as children, sexual abuse survivors. What I know, Denise, about that kind of trauma is that it strikes to the very most intimate,
right.
soulful, innocent part of ourselves. And I can tell you at age 78, as I'm still learning how to be in romantic relationships, I'm still learning. I'm like a 30-year-old sometimes. Sometimes I'm like a 28-year-old, and sometimes like I'm like a 78-year-old. But you're right, that innocence, I can reclaim it sometimes. But the trust was so destroyed that is so hard. And yet we're still aiming for the same thing. We're still trying to find ways as adults to have the joy, to have the awe, to have the curiosity, and at the same time owning that was desperately, abjectly, and horrifically taken from us in a way that's very hard to reclaim. And
Yeah.
yet, I think it is.
I do get a sensation of like adventure, like when I'm riding my bicycle and the wind is blowing and
Yeah.
I can remember a time of not innocence, but almost innocence, just that spark to go, that spark to, how kids just play? They just
Yeah.
play. You don't have to tell them how to play. So that is kind of innocence in a way. It's
Mhm.
trusting the process, I guess. So when I'm riding my bike, I can get that sensation again.
What about when you're watching a chrysalis transform? Do you have feelings about that?
I do, but that's more about we can adapt to our abuse. We can
Ah,
adapt to our trauma. We can take the bad things and find the strength in them or the resilience or the goodness. That's how I see that. Uh,
I hear you.
Not not like I don't get that awesome, amazing, awesome, like magical sensation about it. Like the magic is what is missing.
Ah, I hear you, sweetie. Yesterday, I gave myself and my infant self and my 2.5-year-old self a great gift that I give to myself every summer. There is in nearby Vermont a festival, a chamber music festival, and for whatever reason, Brahms and Beethoven, this beautiful music that they created is in my soul. It calms me, it comforts me, it soothes me, and it takes me into a place of awe. So here's the what I'm talking about and what you're talking about. And I'm going to ask Stephanie to come in and let us know what she thinks about this. But what I want to say is when I sit in the presence, I'm right there next to the violinist, next to the cellist. I can hear them breathe. I can feel like I'm part of that group. And I've studied to know that their nervous systems are interacting with each other. The nerve cells are like continuously uplifting each other. So what I say to myself as a trauma survivor is, you're safe, Holly Elissa. You can be what you can feel, whatever you want to feel, whatever inspires you. You can feel it all as if you were a new baby, as if you were 2 years old. And it's not every time, but there are so many times that I am just in awe. It's like a holy moment. I kind of think that the holy moment, I'm not talking religion here, I'm talking about the sacred times when we know God's in God's heaven and all's right with the world. Those beautiful moments like holding a baby and just knowing this is such a gift. Those moments of innocence can come back, Denise, sometimes when I say that to myself and invite it back. Stephanie, I'm going to ask you, can you help us with this? I'm sure you can see what both Denise and I are feeling and saying. What's it like for you, or what do you see?
I feel I understand both perceptions here, right? I sometimes feel that we put on that mask of I'm okay, I'm doing it. Maybe especially as children, I remember going to school, hanging out with friends, um, trying to put on that illusion that I'm fine, I'm okay, right? Because how else I couldn't survive at home, right?
Right.
So out in the public, out in front of my friends, being able to be what I imagined myself to be, right? So not necessarily having that innocence or not displaying that trauma, right? But just hiding it, covering it up. And
Masking.
so masking, yeah, absolutely. And so while as a child, we want to experience that, maybe we're drawn to that. I could see a lot of my behaviors as a child and teenager were trying to feel something other than what I was feeling. And we see so many kids trying to do that, right? How many times do we see a child destroying an entire classroom or hitting their heads on the floor or the wall or hitting themselves, fighting,
Yes,
just
you're right.
trying to feel something other than what they're feeling.
That's, you guys are brilliant. I'm so glad I get to work with you both because that is so true. The thing that, again, we keep returning here, Stephanie, to what's the trauma survivor's experience and how can we face it, not run from it and heal it? And what you're saying is I experienced, I think all trauma survivors do, the feeling of a panic attack coming on. I can't handle that. I don't want a panic attack to come along. So I have all kinds of things I can do to prevent the panic attack, including if this had champagne in it, I could drink a little champagne and tell myself, you're going to be okay now. You're going to be okay. Or going to help somebody. Because we know the research says if I'm helping somebody, the endorphins that get released from that heal the panic attack. And yet you're saying something deeper. And Denise said it too. I don't want a mask. I don't want to mask or pretend I'm not feeling this to be recovering. I need to say, this is what I'm feeling. And it's hard, and this is not an appropriate place to do this. So I am feeling this. I say this all the time when I'm in situations where I can't speak out. And I try to get in as few of those situations as I can. But when I need to be quiet, I say those things to myself. I'm feeling really angry right now. I'm angry. I'm going to take this pen and I'm going to doodle. or anger right out there. And it's not a safe place for me to share how I'm feeling. I want to ask you guys this, and I'm looking at the time because we're coming up on our last 5 to 6 minutes. The question that I wanted to ask before brings all this together. And if it doesn't feel true to you, just put it aside and talk about whatever you need to talk about. But I feel strongly that a teacher in the classroom needs to bring, I, as a teacher in the classroom, need to bring myself, my as is self. And if I'm walking the classroom and I'm close to tears, because, and here's a true story, my dear friend of 36 years, trauma survivor, we've been close for all those years. She's got and had for a long time lung cancer, and she's recovered and now she's in hospice. And when I think about losing Wendy, I'm very sad. And so I talk, my attitude about going into a classroom of adults or children is to be developmentally appropriate, to say, I want to share with you guys, I love you. And I'm so glad we're here today to talk about how music soothes traumatized souls. I need to say that if my face looks sad or you see a tear coming, it's not about you. I'm going to share something with you if it's okay. It's sad. So I want to, let you know it's sad. But then I share that my friend Wendy is at the end of her life, and I feel really sad about that. And just owning that will help me be here, be present with you. And almost everybody, I have rarely seen someone not able to accept that honesty. Children are good with it. Adults, I say it's okay wherever you are with this. I don't have to feel a certain way. I'm just saying it. Then later on in the class, I often say something like, I'm feeling that sadness again. I'm feeling the sadness again. And I just wanted to say that. And here's what I need to do with that. So my question to you is, my friends, is it okay to bring your true self into the classroom when bringing your true self means bringing a feeling that might not be comfortable for others, let alone yourself? How do you feel about that?
I think I was pretty expert at masking. I'm okay. I'm in charge here, and I'm going to take care of business.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, be genuine. But I have a little switch when I go into a classroom and become Teacher Denise. And Teacher Denise, yeah, she feels sad if someone hits somebody, or, I would say, oh, that makes me sad when you hit my friend. Or look, she looks sad. Look at her face. She looks sad. But
Mm-hmm.
as far as my personal feelings, they kind of, I don't know. I want to be genuine, but I think I really have a switch, and I leave my personal. Also, being gay, we had to kind of hide that.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in high school or college, they fired me for being gay. It was a mock teacher board meeting, and my
Can't talk.
peers fired me for being gay. So I never thought I could be out until I
Wow.
moved to Pasadena. When I moved to remember we were talking about Pasadena? When I moved to Pasadena, my first day, I was looking out the window, and this McGruff came walking in with this woman sheriff, and I go, wow. And my coworker goes, I knew you were gay. And they all would start going, they all had this signal LLL for me. And whenever somebody was around, they'd say, oh, teacher, look.
I love
So
it.
that was the first time I felt I was okay to be out. And that
Mhm.
was 2000.
I hear
So
you,
I
sweetie.
had a lot of years before that where they could, I could not say my partner. I could
Yep.
not, you know, so I think I still probably have that monitor on myself was pretty strong.
Denise, you're saying something really helpful here, which is that a person of color, a person of difference, a person who's traumatized, we all have boundaries that keep us safe, because not being safe is not acceptable. And so I often work with people who have like one or two overt indicators that they have differences. And wow, they continuously tell me about the trauma that they feel. I'm in danger of trauma right now. That's what they would say. So I hear you, and I respect that. And so here we go, Stephanie. We've got two different approaches here, both very valid. How about you? Is it okay for you to share with children how you're feeling? And I think we're talking about another thing that's a whole other topic, which is how do I do it in a way that's safe? Teacher Denise,
Yeah.
Teacher Holly Elissa, I'm safe, I believe, when I'm saying this to people, because I'm able to say it out loud and I'm not falling apart. And yet, tell us more about how you would see this.
So I just like I explained parenting, right? How I said we're either going to continue the cycle or we're going to break it. And from what I hear, Denise is continuing her cycle. She was silenced and feels like I still need to hold that in, right? I need to keep my personal self quiet, which is why she's code switches when she goes into teacher Denise mode. And then Holly, I hear you say, I am more than happy to share these feelings with the children, right? And I am the same way. I feel that we are, while we are more aware of especially boys and young men hiding and stuffing their emotions deep down, that we are trying to bring that out, right? Not just, boys, but everybody. But
Yeah.
primarily, I've always, we hear a lot of dads, boys don't cry. Stop it, knock it off. And it's like, no, but we
Plus
all
you
have.
have 3 sons, so.
I do. So I've always told them, even the kids in my class, talk to your friends, tell them how you feel. It's okay, and giving them specific phrases like, tell me how you're feeling, and maybe I can help you describe that to your friend, right? And it hurts my heart when you take a toy from me, right? Or it really makes me sad when, this happens. And I think that that's especially important because, like the both of you, being silenced, right, does not feel good. And knowing that, I want to make sure that my children in my home and in my care have the ability to freely speak and say how they are feeling. I tell my kids at home all the time, if I misinterpret a situation that happens at home, I want you to tell me, but mom, wait, that's not how that happened. Let me explain it, right? Because, like the both of you, I'm sure, it was don't talk back, right?
Right.
It was one of those situations. So, and I knew how I felt, right? I felt like I couldn't explain that. And I want my kids to have that freedom to be able to communicate that without being terrified, without being scared of being hurt. And that's my goal, is to teach them that.
And you have.
And Denise, you have done a marvelous job too. I feel like each one of us, thanks to both of you and me too, we're telling our truth as trauma survivors, and no two of us is the same. But at the same time, we've all faced
Yeah.
horror and shame and destruction and close to annihilation. Violation is what we faced. And so we're now all walking each other home, helping each other find the way. And Denise, I just want to say to you that twice during this program, you came out on the oops stick. And I want to say that part of being a recovering trauma survivor, you and me, it's really good friends together, is just like what Stephanie said. She says to her kids, if that's not the way you saw it, tell me, because you and I see things very differently. And it's been okay all along. that you have your experience and I learn from it, and I have my experience and I learn from it. So my lawyer-like self came out and said, "Oh, don't say the name of a child, but you know better
Right.
than I do.
Right.
Confidentiality. You were just being yourself." And I don't want to say, because one of the worst things that can happen to us is to feel judged publicly. That'll shut me down. So I make an amend if I did that in any way that felt uncomfortable to you.
No,
When
I felt fine. And I do know better. But I was just trying to remember, I was trying to connect with specifics. And
Conversation with friends. That's all that
yes,
that
right,
was.
that's right. We're walking each
Got
other home.
into that shift, right?
right.
That's it, honey. Well, my friends, I'm going to invite Stephanie and Denise to say goodbye to you in their own way. Please join us next Monday at 3. And I love that Stephanie came on personally. And you can do that too, guys. And if you don't want to, as we said to Stephanie before she was coming on, if you don't want to appear in a video, just, just how do you do? Just blink out the video. But you can just be here, and you can, if you don't want to talk, you can put something in the chat. We will listen and we will respond. So love you guys. Love you both, Stephanie and Denise, and looking so much forward to continuing these conversations. Denise and Stephanie, how would you like to say fairly well to our listeners?
I'm so glad that you came today, Stephanie. My heart feels
You.
really happy about it and remembering our work together. And bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.